welcome to the office hours for week 5 for COIS ADMN 1620, Intro to Information Systems. We should probably be a fairly brief office hours, I would think, this time around. We're starting to get to that point in the course where we've done everything, seen everything, and it's just a matter of covering new material and doing the same thing as the previous module. So I'll go over some of my sort of standard comments, and then I'll open the floor for questions. And if you guys want, you can either put them anonymously or publicly in the chat, or you can hop on your mic and or your video camera and ask me questions. Or if it's a private question or a private discussion, I will stick around after the office hours is concluded and put everyone into private rooms, and I'll come around and talk to people and deal with anything on a private level if that's needed. So standard disclaimer, if you're not seeing the quizzes yet, you have not successfully done the 2 mandatory requirements. The first of which is the submitting the academic integrity module, the screenshot proving that you've done it as directed in the syllabus, as I've gone in great length talking about in every office hours to date. If you are watching this as opposed to attending live and you have questions about these mandatory requirements, it's probably worth your time to go to office hours 1 and spend that time to understand everything, get a full understanding of what's going to happen in this course. So the academic integrity module is 1. The second thing that you have to do in order to see the quizzes is do the course requirements quiz and get it perfect, 20 out of 20. Those answers are found in the syllabus and or in the APA link and video provided. So you need to get those both perfect. If you're submitting the academic integrity module, know that I have to mark that manually. So if that's what's holding you up from getting the quizzes, please do that in lots of time before you want to actually write the quizzes. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed because I just won't get around to marking it if you leave it to the last couple hours before you want to do the quizzes. Now, in fairness, we are on module 3. Our quizzes are not due. Our practices, quizzes, and discussion 2 are not due until February 17th. We're only at the 9th here, so it's a week from Friday that they are due. Yes, so February 17th is when they're due. It's worth saying because there's been some confusion. So I'm just going to wrap up. So there are the 2 requirements that have to be fulfilled in order to see the quizzes. However, you can still see the practices and you still see the discussions. There has been confusion between say quiz 3 and quizzes 3 and quiz 3. So quizzes 3 are all the quizzes that are part of module 3. If you look in the syllabus, we are covering chapter 5, chapter 6, tech guide 2. Those are the chapters that we're covering. So there are 3 quizzes, there are 3 practices, and there's 1 discussion that's due in this 2-week period. I've had people asking me, I can't see chapter 3. Well, that's because chapter 3 was part of module 2 and module 2 is now closed. So that has also been covered, but I'll say it again to maybe forestall anyone that's just watching this as their first office hours. Either go back and watch it to get the full detail or read through the syllabus and understand what I mean there. So the quizzes for module 3, so quizzes 3 consist of 3 individual chapters, as do the practices consist of 3 individual. Okay. Are tech guides mandatory? Yes, they are. Tech guides are absolutely mandatory. They are treated like any other chapter. Okay. So when I put them in, there's quizzes and practices. If you look in the syllabus and you look at the marks for module practices, you'll see that it's 17% and it says 1% per chapter or tech guide. So And the same with the module quizzes. It's 34% of your final mark, and it's 2% per chapter or tech guide. So tech guides are definitely mandatory. Okay. Good question, Tariq. Where's discussion 1 in my grade section? Because I see discussion 2, but discussion 1 isn't there. We've hidden discussion 1 while we mark it. So I don't want to reveal the marks until all of them are marked. And I want to bear with me for a second. And I'll tell you how many are still outstanding to be marked, because not very many at this point. We are down to 48 students that have to be marked. And yeah, 48 students that have to be marked, of which one person's already submitted a discussion 2. So 47 students have yet to be marked. My promise to you, or my commitment to you, was to get those marked no later than Friday. So by Friday evening, those should all be marked, and I'll release the marks to everyone. Those marks will have lots of feedback. We will have spent a fair bit of time telling you if there was anything that needed improving, what that was, what we were looking for in the future. So please do take the time to read the feedback before you submit your next discussion, okay? Remember, I had a couple people that submitted discussions inadvertently. They did one, and instead of saving them, they submitted them. Because the discussions are multiple random questions, I can't reopen those for you. So be very, very careful, as the instruction says, about hitting that submit button to submit them. Once you do that, it's final, and that's what we will be marking. Okay. I think that's all that I want to cover. I mean, I'll just sort of reiterate here that we are now in module 3. So by the end of module 3, we're halfway through the course, right? There's only 6 modules. We've got chapter 5, chapter 6, and tech guide 2 to cover. So we've got 3 practices, 3 quizzes, and discussion 2 to submit, all due on Friday, February 17th at 11:59:00. Again, if it's marked late by Blackboard, it's treated as late by me, and whatever the appropriate penalty for late is, that's what will be applied. Don't leave these all to the last minute, guys. If you haven't kind of figured that out in the first 2 modules, doing it all next Friday kind of sucks and leaves you vulnerable to the internet going out, your laptop freezing up, whatever. None of which is a valid excuse for submitting late. So please do work away at them between now and next Friday. So, and I mean a week Friday. My suggestion, I would always do my practice for the first chapter, followed by my quiz for the first chapter. I would look at my discussion and I would start on that. I'd start outlining that, making sure not to submit it, just to save it. And then I would do my second chapter practice and my second chapter's quiz, and then go on in that manner. So I would incrementally do it. I think the practice really helps you to do well in the quiz, because it covers all the major points in the quiz. So do the practice and then go straight on to the quiz is the best way to attack it. Okay. I actually did not realize the tech guide quizzes are mandatory. Can you tell me what percentage I have missed? Sure. The tech guides are 1% for practice and 2% for the quiz. So the first tech guide that we did was in module 2. There's no tech guide in module 1. So you have missed 3% of your final mark. So you missed a practice for a tech guide and a quiz for your tech guide. 1% plus 2% is 3%. Okay. Does anyone have any questions at this point? So we're in the whole rinse and repeat, meaning that our module 2, our module 3, our module 4, and our module 5 have exactly the same expectations. There'll be 3 chapters / tech guides and a discussion in each of those. I feel like this is a silly question. There's no silly questions. Do I have to read the entirety of the chapters in the textbook? because just reading a single chapter alone is going to take me at least 3 hours, let alone doing the practice and quizzes. So my answer to that is yes, you should read the entire chapter. I'm thinking that if it takes you 3 hours, that it's probably worth the practice to speed that up. There's not that much material, and I recognize that there's lots of people here that English may not be their first language, so that's a particular challenge. Anything in that chapter is subject to being on the exam. You know, being on the quizzes, being on the practice, being on the exam. So you're taking a chance if you don't read all the material. And to my way of thinking anyways, you're not getting the full value of the course in terms of information if you're not going through all of those, all of the chapters. So my recommendation is if you're looking for a way to shorten the amount of time that you spend on the course, the optional element, just bear with me here. The optional element is, if you look in course content, and we're in module 3 now, the optional element are the various lectures that I've done. So the lectures that I've done are there to help you out. They're not comprehensive, meaning that there's going to be stuff, there's not going to be anything in the lecture, in my lecture, that's not in the textbook, but there's going to be lots in the textbook that's not in my lecture. Okay, if that makes sense. So if you're looking to to minimize or reduce the amount of time, then the first thing that I would chop out would be my lectures, unless that's providing you with a ton of assistance in understanding what the textbook's talking about, then that's what I would cut. Now, I spent a lot of time doing those lectures and trying to cover the material, and it is generally going to be the most important material, but it's not all of the material. So again, I leave that up to you. The lectures are there to help you. If you don't find them helpful, or you find yourself overwhelmed in terms of the time, then that's the first and only thing that I would skip. Okay. Does that help, Tariq? Is that helpful? Came in a little late, so not sure if you went over this, but is there an expected date for when the discussion grades will be released? You see, okay, thanks, Tariq. Yes, Isaac, the marks are going to be released Friday evening, if not earlier. Well, I guess it's not going to be any earlier. We're at Thursday evening now, so it'll be Friday evening or Saturday morning, very early Saturday morning, that those will be released. So please do take a chance to look at that feedback and learn from them. How can we view the questions we got wrong in the quizzes? You cannot. So I've covered this lots of times. I'm happy to cover it again. The quizzes come from a pool of questions. Students have access to probably every single question that has ever been asked in any undergraduate course by various cheating websites. I'm going to confirm or deny whether answers are correct. I'm using the quizzes to encourage you to get through the material and understand the material and prepare yourself. I didn't used to do quizzes in this course specifically, and I got to the midterm and I realized no one had read a chapter, or most people hadn't even bothered to read the chapters. They'd come to my lectures because we were doing it in person, but they hadn't kept up with the chapters. So I do quizzes mostly to prompt you to do your homework and read the chapters and understand them. So I don't provide answers to quizzes at all. My suggestion has always been to take screenshots of the questions as you go through. If you get the quizzes perfect, obviously you know what all the right answers are then. You should probably record what you think may be the ones that you're having trouble with, and then I would go back as a study exercise and look for answers in the book and try and determine what you got wrong. But at the end of the day, this is a university course, and I'm not really trying to get you guys to the point where you've memorized a bunch of questions. I want you to think about the information, absorb that information, and be able to react to the information, as opposed to just memorizing a bunch of multiple choice questions. So that's the sort of philosophical answer to that. On the syllabus, it says grading is based on quizzes, tech guides. Does it mean by missing tech guides, I missed marks for the quizzes and practices as well? Nope, you just missed marks on the tech guides. So, I'm not sure. Let me pull up the syllabus. I'm not sure exactly where you're referring to. The grading section in the syllabus says module practices, module quizzes, discussions, and final exams. And it says the module practices, for instance, are worth 17%. So that's 1% per chapter / tech guide. So that means that each chapter or tech guide is worth 1%. There's 13 chapters and 4 tech guides in the book. So those are all treated equally. They're worth 1% each for practices, and they're worth 2% for the quizzes. Okay, so skipping tech guides, you just lose marks on the tech guides. And I calculated a little earlier, if someone thought that the tech guides were optional and didn't bother doing the quizzes or practice for them, you've only missed 3% at this point. 2% for tech guide 1 quiz and 1% for tech guide 1 practice. So you can get back on the right track. You've only given up 3% there. Okay, awesome. Does anyone else have any other questions? So this is a good course for you guys from the perspective that there isn't a midterm. We just kind of roll through until we get to the final here. Yeah, there's nothing to concern yourself for the midterm at all. We will deal with all the things around the final as we get into office hours closer to that. And I'll just kind of leave it at that for now. Yeah, there's no midterm here, which may be a bit of a relief because you're probably coming on a bunch of midterms in a lot of courses. This one is just the same commitment as always. And in fact, I think the next module, bear with me again, please. If we look at module 4, it includes reading week. So there's a week before, I think, reading week, or there's at least a 3-week period there. So that'll be nice and slow to allow you, you don't have to do anything in reading week if you don't want to, but reading week has that name because it's usually get caught up in reading. That'll be module 4 will have 3 weeks, including the reading week, to get through. Okay. Just scrolling down to make sure I'm seeing everyone's questions. I think I've answered anyone's question that's asked me a question. Guys, if you're happy with the office hours, meaning that I've talked in generalities about what you were interested in, feel free to get on with your evening. Thanks for taking the time to join this. I think it's a valuable exercise. It keeps people on track, keeps misunderstandings to a minimum. So thank you for coming out. Thank you for asking questions. If you have a private personal matter that you want to discuss about the course, feel free to stick around and I'll put everyone into separate rooms at the end of this. But if you're good, thanks very much for coming out and have a good evening.